Okay. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining our third community workshop for the Vermont Manchester development. Our topic today is affordable housing, and we'll actually get started in respect for everyone everyone's time today. My name is Angela Labu, and I'm the Chief Operations Officer for Coalition for Responsible Community Development. We are so pleased to be a partner on this wonderful project, and our partners are actually all here, and we'll be sharing updates on the project as well as diving deep into the affordable housing component of the project. And so they'll be introducing themselves throughout the evening. So our goals for, as I mentioned, this is our third community workshop. The first workshop was really just on the project itself, kind of the design and what the program is for the site. The second workshop was focused on local hire. Our third workshop would have been focused on the retail and commercial space, but it ended up coinciding with one of the presidential debates, and so we postponed it to 3 weeks from now. So that commercial and retail space workshop will be happening later on this month, and I'm sorry, in November, because we're already on the 28th. And so the goals of these workshops are to inform stakeholders with balanced, easy to understand information, to share the purpose of the development, meet the development team, understand the timeline, and share project updates. That's goal number one. The second goal is to build an understanding of concerns and aspirations of stakeholders to inform project decisions. Today we have, or per usual, we have Louis McNeil monitoring the Q&A box, and Lisa Winkle monitoring the chat box. They're part of our CRCD team. And we continue to encourage the development team to respond to questions directly in either in the chat box or in the Q&A box. You're welcome to raise your hand as well during the Q&A portions of different topics, and we'll open your line to share your question. We are posting materials and FAQs after the workshops on the development website, which is vmtpp.com. And Louis, if you could drop that link into the chat box at your convenience, that would be great. So before we get started, we just want to launch a couple of quick polls to see who's in the room today. And so you are going to see a couple of polls pop up on your screen. The first is who is on the call, and so you can please select which group kind of represents you, and as well as your age group. And this helps us just to understand kind of who's in the room today, so we can be just cognizant of who's in the room today. So I'll give folks just 30 more seconds to complete the poll. Panelists, of course, you're welcome to complete the poll as well. And we will share the results in just a moment. So it looks like, oh, great. It looks like most folks have actually voted. So I'm going to end the polling in 3 seconds. I have a timer, that's why I can say that. Great. So, as you can see, the majority of folks joining us today are residents, which is wonderful. We love having residents on the call. That's the most important group, I would say. We also have local business owners, folks from nonprofits, and our local elected officials representatives, as well as students, parents, teachers, our administrators of schools. Our largest age group on the call today is a 26 to 45 age group, which is great. And so thank you guys for taking that quick poll. I'm going to stop sharing results right now. And we're actually going to go forward with our agenda. Before, we're going to be starting off with some project updates. So Nilura Bell is here to share an update about the seed school components of the development. Leandro and Claudia are here from Prime Store. They're going to be sharing an update on the retail and commercial space. We'll, have some time for Q&A. And then Lewis is actually going to be presenting some community data to help to set the stage for Alexis's presentation, which will dig deeper into the actual affordable housing component of the project. That's really where we're going to have the most robust conversation. We want to hear your questions. We'll be responsive to questions. And then we also just have some questions to the community about how about ways that we can, that ideas that you all have about how we can support, outreach and getting the word out about the affordable housing units that will be made available through this project. And we'll close, Lewis will actually close us out with any announcements as well as next steps. So with that said, did I cover everything on? Okay, with that said, I'm going to turn it over to Nilura to share a project update on the seed school. Nilura?
All right, thank you very much, Angela, and good evening, everyone. It's good to be in the virtual room with you once again, and hope everyone's been doing well. So my update is pretty brief today. It feels like a lot has happened, but it's most of what we told you was coming. So we did have our groundbreaking with the supervisor and the Metro CEO last Wednesday. And so that for me, it's been a 2-year journey. So I kind of felt a little something about that. So we were kind of happy to do that. We did get some pretty good coverage about it. And then the other key thing that has happened is that the the contractor that's doing the utility work started, what's today? Wednesday. He started on Monday. So they're finally out there. It took a little while. We were trying to get out there early, but there were a couple of issues with the traffic control plan. So that's kind of where we are with that. And so what our team is doing over the next 3 months is making a mad dash to January 15th. We think we've gotten all of our financing together. We've identified the bank that's going to be our investor, our key lender, and then some other folks that are going to provide the leverage lending. And I think one of the questions that was asked last time that I'll just take a moment to talk about is who's financing the project. So there's this structure called New Markets Tax Credit Financing, and that's what we're primarily using to finance the project, where the banks get credit, tax credits for investing in our project. A bank that's an investor. So that's the primary investor, but then they also require other lenders, and we use community development financial institutions to put together the project. And then we've also raised about $30 million in philanthropy to fund the project as well. So that combination, the total project is $90 million. 30 is philanthropy, and the other 60 is financing and debt that we'll have on the project. And I think one of the things that I don't think we shared before is one of the new features, we talked about it, well, at another meeting, not at this meeting, is one of the donors, what we're calling our cornerstone donor, wanted us to add more greening features to the school. So they wanted like a rooftop garden, and they wanted fruit-bearing trees throughout the campus. So they gave us a lot of money, plus they gave us a bit of money to do that change. And so we're happy to be doing that, and we're excited, and we think it brings something to the campus that we hadn't thought of, and we were on a meager budget, but they thought it's important to bring healthy options to the students, and so they've paid for that. So it's going to be on the southwest corner, on top of the building, right next to the rooftop play court, sports court that's on the building too. So that's where we are, still working to close on January 15th and start going vertical with construction. And I'll answer any questions that people may have. Oh, what banks and what foundations? Yes, I see that question. So the key bank that is doing our investment lending is Chase Bank, and they're also going to provide us an additional direct loan on the project. So they're providing the most of it. And for the foundations, there are, God, at least 15 or 20 of them. And I'll have to send that list. I'll see if I can pull it together to post for you for before the end of the meeting, but it's a lot, but it's some of your usual folks around LA, the Parsons Foundation, California Community Foundation, the Bannerman Foundation. The signature gift is from Natasha and Brandon Beck. And Mr. Beck is the creator of some very significant video games that people play, and so they're our cornerstone investor. The Weingard Foundation, among others. And then, of course, we always mention that we got our initial pre-development money from the county and Metro. They each gave us $1 million for that. But I'll pull together the list so that I can send it to you.
And that's all I see in the Q&A. I mean, in the chat box. Yeah.
Okay.
No questions in the Q&A.
Great. All right. Thank you, Neil Laura, for that wonderful update. We look forward to receiving the full list to share and post on the VMTPP website. So I'm going to turn it over to Leandro and Claudia to share an update about the commercial and retail space.
Thank you so much, Angela. And thank you to everybody who's tuning in tonight. I know that everyone's got busy schedules with kids on Zoom classes and the crazy days that we're living through. So thank you for spending the time to learn more about what's going on in your community. And then just a quick moment to congratulate Nilura and the Seed family on an incredible groundbreaking. For all of us who Zoomed in, it was pretty touching. It was a very, very magical event. So really, really congratulations on that. So as far as where we stand with the components of the retail and commercial portions of the project, we're still in the stage of trying to get as much outreach as we can to the tenant community. We're still looking for our anchor tenant to occupy the ground floor. And obviously we're focused on groceries and companies that will serve, quality produce and essential needs to the community. We know that that's the #1 priority for us. Of course, we're also outreaching to the greater community of tenants, so we could do some sit-down restaurants and other uses that are necessary. And then very, very important to our hearts is making sure that local entrepreneurs and local businesses and startups from the community are also a part of our project. And we are very interested in that. So if you know of people that are interested in starting a business or have one and are interested in opening a second location, we would really welcome the conversation to see how they could be included in the project. We're still in our design development stage right now, hoping to enter construction documents pretty soon. And ultimately the goal is to be in the plan check process with the city in late February, early March. And then the groundbreaking for our component of the project is intended for probably late summer or early fall. A lot to do between now and then. But most important is making sure that the community's voice is heard and that the process is transparent and open. And so again, we really welcome you guys taking time out of your lives for this event, for hearing us tonight. Last, just on a personal note and on behalf of Prime Store, please stay safe over the next couple of weeks. Please stay sane. please help your community out because we're going to be, we got some stuff going on. And please get out and vote. It's important. A lot of people have suffered and bled for our right to vote, and we should honor that. So thank you very much. I'll pass.
Leander, there's a question in the chat box. What are the prospective retail stores?
Thank you for asking. So from the grocery concept, the word perspective is, I wouldn't use perspective, I would say, who are we targeting? We're targeting anybody that has quality produce, and we would be entertaining anybody from Mendocino Farms, Trader Joe's, Superior, El Super, Cardenas, Northgate, Target. Walmart no longer offers produce sections or a small format store. Aldi, Smart and Final. We spoke with two concepts that are based in South Los Angeles for co-ops. We are speaking with a nonprofit that does grocery concepts for a new concept. Stater Brothers, oh my God, Ralph's, Food for Less. Basically, our job is to speak with the entire industry and educate them on the value of this community and try to really hold their hands on understanding why this is an integral opportunity for them. But that's why I qualified it that way as opposed to saying prospective, because at this stage right now, we had received some letters of intent last year prior to COVID, but people have been a little bit quiet right now in the tenant industry. Between COVID and the elections, the entire tenant community is really hesitant to make decisions. So our job is to keep pushing and keep pushing and keep educating and acting as a facilitator to really tell them how powerful this community could be. But no, we don't have any letters of intent on the table right now, and don't have any prospective people other than the ones that, we're just reaching out to the whole world.
Thank you, Leandro. I don't see any other questions for you in the chat box. Lewis, is there anything in the Q&A?
No questions in Q&A.
Great. Wonderful. Well, folks, as we move forward with the presentations and the discussion, please feel free to enter in any questions that come up. And it does look like we have one question from Jonathan Kennard. And so the question is to Leandro: who do we submit info for prospective retail stores?
Oh, thank you for asking. So we are a completely transparent organization. My email, I will put it in the chat box, but it's really easy. It's my first name, which is Leandro at Primestor, PRIMESTOR.com. And Claudia, who's on the line, just as easy, Claudia at Primestor.com. But I will put it in the chat box, and we'll make sure that we personally reach out to you. We've already gotten interest from two local concepts. One was Toss It Up Salad. The other is South LA Cafe. And every time we do get a local company that's interested, we do want to make sure that we outreach to them and spend a lot of time really, going through this process. So the more, the merrier, because the ideal situation is that we are oversubscribed, and then we could actually start looking at other opportunities in the neighborhood to make sure that there's just as much economic activity as possible. And I'll go ahead and put that in the chat box.
Thank you, Leandro. Oh, there's another question for you. When prospective tenants are approached, what type of information do you provide? Median area, income, density?
Yeah, what an incredibly good question, Ms. Enix, and thank you also for all the work that you're doing on the Neighborhood Council. So our job as retail facilitators and developers is to educate the tenant community on why our urban communities can actually create higher sales volumes than other more affluent communities. The truth of the matter is that in more affluent communities, people tend to get their paycheck and either invest it, save it, and actually don't use all of the discretionary income that they have towards purchasing power. In our inner city communities, we find that our tenants actually have much higher sales per square foot, and therefore can actually be more profitable and more valuable to companies, so that they should be investing in our community. So demographics are very important to us. Density is very important to us. Here's what's not important to us. College education. So a lot of tenants traditionally ask you really BS questions about education levels. And we fight that because we think that that's a little bit of a smokescreen for kind of institutional racism. You know, the minute they start saying, well, you know, what's the college educated? We're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I didn't go to college. Most of us didn't go to college. And when we go to, you know, Target, we don't buy textbooks. We get Pampers and we get toilet paper and Purell. So, you know, when we go to the grocery store, we're not looking for the intellectual section. Sorry, that's our new puppy who keeps us up all day. So what we're trying to do is really educate the tenants and have them understand that our inner city communities actually have less competition than more overbuilt neighborhoods, which means that they can actually make so much more money, and therefore should be investing and hiring locally. But it is a facilitation process. I hope I answered that question.
It looks like you have one more question in the Q&A box. Other than the supermarket, what other types of retail will be targeted?
Yes, thank you for asking, Arnetta. So unfortunately, we don't have a large component of retail on this project. It's an incredibly important project, but the retail component is limited. We really only have about 55,000 square feet of retail maximum. The grocery will take up the bulk of that. On top of the grocer, we do have 2 buildings that are designated for retail. One is going to be out in the plaza, which is about 3,000 square feet, which we want to target for a local community coffee shop, maybe with a little community room involved. And so we are targeting some kind of local coffee shops. And then we also have about 6,000 square foot full service retail building in the plaza, which we really want to target towards sit down restaurants and what we call quick serve restaurants. We absolutely will not be doing any fast food here. There's no drive-throughs, and even without a drive-through, we won't be doing any fast food. We don't have enough room to do a grocer and a pharmacy. We are already limited on the size of our own envelope. But we are going to try to tackle and work with a grocery store that may hopefully include a pharmacy concept within their store.
Thank you, Leandro. Okay, it looks like those are the questions for now. So I'm gonna turn it over to Louis, who will be sharing some of the community data. And then Alexis will actually dig into the affordable housing component of the project. So Louis, take it away. He'll be sharing his screen, and I just want to respond. Sylvia, thank you for your comments. So glad no fast food places. Yes, we are not going to be having any fast food. It's different from quick serve that Leandro was explaining. So yes, no fast food, and we've heard that loud and clear and are on board with that as well.
Can you see my screen?
Not yet, no.
Okay. Now?
Yes.
Okay. Good evening. I'm going to be presenting data, community data on affordable housing. And let me switch to the next slide. Okay, here we have a map of Vermont Knolls, and we're looking at the median income for California, $71,228. For Los Angeles County, $64,251. For the city of Los Angeles, $58,385. And for Vermont Knolls, $34,311. And this is from the U.S. Census Bureau 2018. Next slide. Okay, here we have the percentage of renters and homeowners. We have Los Angeles County, renters were 54%, owners 46%. For the city of Los Angeles, renters were 63%, owners 37%. For Vermont Knolls, renters were 78% and owners was 22%. And this is from a website called Niche. Okay, homeless count on any given night. SPA 6, seniors 1,489. For the youth, 2,559. For families, 10,293. And for individuals, 13,012. For the city of LA, 4,080 seniors, 2,910 youth, 35,626 families, and 41,290 individuals. For CD8, 483 seniors, 189 youth, 3,274 families, 4,386 individuals. For Vermont Knolls, we have 988 individuals.
Louis, what does SPA 6 mean?
That's the county. I'm trying to remember SPA.
SPA stands for a service planning area.
Thank
And
you.
it's the way that the county divides, how county agencies divide up LA County to organize services. And so since services go through the county, that's the way that they describe, that they break up the different regions of LA County. And so SPA 6 is South LA.
And I'll have a map in the next slide kind of showing what covers SPA 6.
Okay.
Next presentation, excuse me.
And then the next slide. Here we have the rent burdened, moderately rent burdened, those spending 30% or more of income on rent. For LA County was 55%, for Vermont Knolls was 67%. The severely rent burdened, those spending 50% or more for income on rent. For LA County was 30%, and for Vermont Knolls was 41%. And that was the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Louis. So we wanted to make sure we shared some of the community data to give a sense of kind of what some of the needs are. I think everyone on this call is really knowledgeable about kind of the neighborhood dynamics and the neighborhood needs. And so we thought that as a way to kind of frame the discussion around affordable housing, that we would share some data to take a look at, what are some of the numbers behind the things we know and the things we see. So we hope that was helpful. There is a question about normalizing the homeless data. John, can you maybe say a little bit more about that? I can unmute your line. Just give me a moment. Oh, wait, hold on. I lost you.
I think I unmuted him. John, are you there?
Oh, thank you.
You hear me?
There he is. Yes. Hello.
I'm sorry, I had a headset in. It was not recognizing me. So normalizing data is just looking at it from a standpoint of the population within the general area. That way it's clear to see what it is based on percentages as well. Just a little, it may offer a better understanding, right? You're offering homeless data within the area, homeless data within the county, homeless data within, I think the other metric was LA. But you know, there's some huge, those numbers were drastically different because the size of the areas were drastically different. So if we can normalize the data by putting it in a percentage, you see whether or not the area is experiencing higher or lower levels relative to each other. Because if you just look at the raw number, it's hard to tell what we're looking at.
Yeah, and it's interesting too. I think you bring up a good point. When you said normalizing data, I actually thought you were maybe asking about annualizing the data, because that's the other thing as well with the homeless count, is that it's a count that provides an estimate on any given night. And so that's
you're
not
talking
necessarily,
about
that's also
seasonality
not
may be
for,
an issue.
yeah, it's like, you know, so if it's on any given night, that's not saying homelessness in the whole year. Right. And so there's also data around there around annualizing the homeless count number. So I thought maybe that's what you were talking about, but I hear what you're saying.
Yeah. If I were looking at data for seasonality, you probably want to look at the highs and the lows and see how they trend based on the seasons. But you know, telling me a homeless number for this particular community, it doesn't let me know, it doesn't help me understand whether or not the numbers are significantly different as a percentage.
Sure. And I think that was, thank you for that feedback. And we'll post these slides. Actually, Louis, if you wouldn't mind pulling up that slide. The way that we showed the information was meant to drill down to the neighborhood level. And so that's what you see there. I think it was maybe 2 slides ago.
Wait a minute.
The homeless count data.
Yeah.
That's the one. And so you can see here, kind of as we drill down and we look at kind of our larger kind of geographic areas and drilling them down. What we wanted to be able to show was what it looks like from a regional level and then down to the council district and the actual neighborhood level. And you can see that for the neighborhood level, we can't pull data, or at least the data that is readily available is not broken down by subpopulation. We can only get, at this point, we can see the numbers for just overall for individuals in our specific neighborhood where the development is going to be built. Yeah. But if there is, you know what we can do too is that for when we post the materials on the website, what we could also do is post the actual data sheets for the homeless count, which will break down those numbers and provide more information kind of on the whole region. And we'll make sure to also post those one-pagers so that they're easy to find. You can find them on the LAHSA website, and there's also a dedicated website that is They Count Will You, and it's specifically about, it's all homeless count information, which I'll add that link as Alexa starts her presentation up. I can add that link to the chat box if folks are interested in kind of digging deeper into homeless count numbers. And we'll also make sure to post some of the individual one-pagers to the website, so those are easy to be found. Thanks for putting this up again, Louis. I appreciate it. And we were intentional about sharing these specific numbers because as you'll hear from Alexis, there are units that are targeting different subpopulations. So we wanted to share that information. So I'm going to turn it over to Alexis for your presentation.
Thank you. Now let me show this. You'll have to make me a co-host. I'm not able to share my screen at this time. Thank you. I think this is going to be right. Let's see what happens. Okay. Sorry, I have 3 screens open right now, so I'm trying to make sure I'm looking at the right thing. Okay. So again, my name is Alexis Lang, Senior Project Manager with Bridge Housing, and we're working with Prime Store and CRCD for the redevelopment of this site. I'll spend my time talking about the plans for the affordable housing component. So I'll give you a little background on Bridge. People who aren't familiar with us, we've been around for over 30 years. Built about 17,000 housing units, about 200,000 square foot of commercial and retail throughout that time. We have over 4,000 units in 30 plus projects in pre-development or construction right now. And we have offices from San Diego up to Portland, with our headquarters in San Francisco, and I'm based out of our Los Angeles office. These are a few projects that we have nearby. So we have the first phase of Jordan Downs that was developed, that finished last year, which also developed next to, in conjunction with Prime Store and CRCD as well. We have Heritage Square, which is a senior project in Pasadena. We're actually starting the second phase of Heritage Square next 1 or 2 years, which will be a senior homeless project in Pasadena. And then Sage Park, which is a project that we did on LAUS Los Angeles Unified School District land near Gardena. And then a little bit more, CRC can definitely give you more information about them, but I wanted to include some pictures of some of the projects they've done as well. So they've been around since 2005 as a community development organization. They have a master agreement with the County Department of Health Services for supportive housing services, and they're one of the regional coordinators for the Los Angeles Homeless Service Authority's coordinated entry system for youth experiencing homelessness, and they have over 300 units of permanent supportive housing in 9 developments. This is a slide on the project y'all are familiar with. And then this is just a general site plan of what we're talking about. We've shown similar slides in the past. This is where the school will be located. Seed School, the parking garage, the retail that's in the plaza that Leandro discussed earlier, our transit plaza, our general retail. And then there's a new street that's being built off of 85th Street that'll turn to Manchester. And on that side will be the entrance into the new housing development, which will include 2 housing components. We have a senior, Vermont Manchester Senior, which will be 60 units of permanent supportive housing for homeless seniors and 2 managers units. And then another portion of the project will have 118 units of family housing. 86 of the units will be for households between 40 and 80% AMI. And then we'll have 30 permanent supportive housing units for homeless households and transitional aged young adults. Then we'll have an additional 2 managers units. The majority of all of the units, like 94% of the units, will be for households between 30 to 60% AMI, which would be a household, a family of 4, from 30,000 to 68,000 based on 2020 limits. However, we are leaving some units restricted up to to 80% to allow for additional households that are in the neighborhood or people who be looking for housing. Our financing for the projects for the housing portions have been mostly committed. For the senior project, we'll need to apply for tax credits and bonds in early 2021, and we're waiting to hear back when the tax credits will be available. But we've already received an affordable housing, sustainable communities loan and grant, Triple H funding from the City of LA, county NOFA money, and 60 project-based vouchers. Then on the family side, again, we'll be applying for the tax credits and bonds, and we will also be applying for the next NOFA for the county funding, which will be due next month, middle of November. But we've already secured the Ahsc money, infill infrastructure grant, which is a program through the state, through the, and we have 30 project-based vouchers. We've applied for transit-oriented development and multifamily housing program funds from HCD, but we won't know about the funding at that. We don't know about the funding at that time. So we're still, that's why we're also applying for the county as a backstop to fulfill the funding goals for the project and be able to still be able to start, as Leandra said, in late 2021. So Louis gave you a background on the general area, specifically to Vermont Knolls, and I wanted to provide some information and background on how we came to figure out the income mix for the units that were at the project. And so it's not just limited to Vermont Knolls. When we do a market study for the project, we reach out to a consultant who can work on the project, and they look at a project based on a primary market area, and our project falls within the Westmont primary market area, which goes from north from Gage, south to Rosecrans, east to Avalon, and west to Crenshaw. And then within that area, there are 20 affordable multifamily projects, which are 100% occupied. And so we think this project will be a great asset to the community. And in future slides, I'll show that we expect to capture about 2% of the affordable housing unit need for this community, and about 19% of the senior homeless housing need for this general community. So it's not as limited to just a few blocks around the project, but I wanted to kind of show a map of exactly the total area that we're talking about. We don't believe that, based on the significant need for affordable housing, we don't think this will detract from other occupied affordable housing projects. Let's see here. And then just to provide additional information about this whole area. So according to, where is it? I just lost information. So the last market study we had run for the project was in July, and according to that market study, 58.7% of the households in this whole Westmont market area earn less than 50% of tax credit designated area median income. In addition, 19.6% of households are classified as low income between 50 and 80% AMI, which means that 78% of the households in this area earn less than 80% of AMI for the County of Los Angeles. I'll go more into that as how we pick the unit mix for our households. On the previous presentation from Louis, he talked about the spa that we're in, the service planning area. So there are 8 spas within the county. I screenshotted a portion of them so you can see where the southern portion of them. So we're in spa 6, and it's kind of, middle South Los Angeles. And this is a zoomed in picture of it from someone else's presentation, but our project is located just on the edge of the spa boundary. So again, like as I mentioned, all of our unit mixes are limited between up to 80% AMI, and kind of want to go through how we reach that number. So according to our February 2020 survey, the overall vacancy was only 1.14% for the entire market area that I showed previously, with 0% vacancy on the affordable units. And then the weighted average of the market rents were substantially higher than the estimated TCAC rents for the project. For example, like the highest two-bedroom rent for the project is estimated this time to be around $1,400, and that's 37% less than the adjusted market rent for this market area. So this project will have a mixture of the 30%, for the family side, we'll have 30 units that are set aside for transition age use and homeless households. And then we'll have a mixture of 1s, 2s, and 3 bedrooms at 40, 50, 60% AMI. And this lists the rent for them, and then the theoretical demand from our market study consultant. So assuming the demand for these households, when we would lease up in 2023 is like 3,808 units, and we're providing 86 of those. So it's a 2.3% penetration rate. And then part of the market study research that they've done, they found that the spa specifically, which is not just the Manchester area, but the spa that went through different communities, there are about 244 households who are of transitional age youth with incomes between 0 to 30% AMI, and the 15 units that we'll provide in our project would only capture 6% of those eligible households. We also found that there's a demand for 1,800 homeless families with incomes 0 to 30%, and with our 15 units in the project, we'll capture less than 1% of the eligible households who currently live in the spa today. On the senior side, it's 100% homeless seniors, and our market study found that when we start to lease up, there should be a demand of around a little over 300 units of homeless households. A homeless senior household will capture around 19% of that demand just from this specific spa. These are some of the additional services that we'll be providing for not just the parent supportive housing units, but we'll also have resident coordinator to help all residents within the project. So case management and individual service plans specifically for permanent supportive housing units if they desire to have those services. We're also providing options for just any of the general households to help them with referrals to the appropriate services that they may need. And also additionally workforce development, but also other services based on what the specific needs are of the tenants. Our tenant selection process and the application process will be further determined as we get closer to lease up. I wanted to provide some background on the overall project. So 11% of all units will have mobility features, so they'll be fully decked out with lower kitchen countertops, guardrail or rails in the bathroom. And then 4% of the units will have communication features such as strobe lights and other features for people who are hard of hearing. The permanent supportive housing units in the senior side and the family side will be chosen through the project through a coordinated entry system, and it will focus on households in SPA 6, but and I'll let Angela provide more information if you have additional questions about that. But the general tenants will be subject to city and county requirements for how the units are, who is able to move into the project. And we'll have a separate separate workshop closer to lease up to go through that application process for the 86 non-permanent supportive housing units. And that is basically the background about how the housing units came to be, like how the income mix was chosen. If you have any questions, please let me know. And I don't see any questions.
Thank you so much, Alexis. I think we do have a question in the Q&A, box.
Yes,
Go ahead, Lewis.
sounds great. With the percentage of homeowners so low in Vermont Knolls, was there any thought about growing that number by creating some affordable home ownership opportunities in this development? I believe that the Jordan Downs redevelopment project offers affordable rental and home ownership, correct?
Yes, so I believe that Jordan Downs will have a home ownership component. This project is limited to 180 units of rental housing, and that is a requirement of how we were chosen to work on the site. So when we applied to do the housing and the commercial portion of the project, there were specific requirements in the county NOFA that required the type of housing that was put on the project, which was 180 units of affordable rental housing.
There is another question in the chat box, wraparound services on the property.
For residents, yes, there will be services through the through case management and working with the residents to address their needs.
There's a question in the Q&A box. What mental health resources will you be providing?
I don't know if Angela, you would take that. I assume yes.
Yes. So while CRCD is not a mental health provider, we work with a lot of mental health providers in our area. And so for those residents who are seeking mental health services, the Department of Mental Health will actually help us to identify a specific provider. And so for the PSH units, for the permanent supportive housing units, the Department of Mental Health actually assigns a primary mental health provider for residents who don't already have a mental health provider. The majority of residents that we have seen move into permanent supportive housing are either coming with a mental health provider that they've had a longstanding relationship with, or they are seeking mental health services, and so we help to make those connections. And it's a range of mental health providers, and it's really about the resident's choice with whom they want to continue those services with.
Another question. How big is a family unit?
So there are 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units that range from, I think, 600 to around 12 or 1,300 square feet, depending on the bedroom size.
Okay, another question. When do you expect to get your certificate of occupancy?
We're expecting about a 2-year construction period. So if we start in, say, like August, September of next year, it'd be August or September of 2023.
Okay. Can you share your Ahsc benefits?
I'm not sure what you mean by the benefits. So we receive, if you're familiar with the program, because we have an AHD, which is Affordable Housing Development Loan for the project. So it's providing financing to build the project. And we were able to win the project based on greenhouse gas emission reduction. And because we're along a transit line, we're able to have a high greenhouse gas offset. So there aren't necessarily benefits for that.
Okay. What is the difference in your blue and black listed sources?
The blue ones are committed at this time.
Okay. That's all I have for right now.
There's a couple more questions in the chat box regarding wraparound services on the property. To be clear, will there be wraparound service providers providing services on the property? 12-step classes, transitional age use classes, or will tenants be forced to attend such classes off property?
That's a great question. So CRCD is the primary service provider for the residents at the property. And so for those residents that are going to be housed in those permanent supportive housing units, so formerly homeless residents, we're going to be providing what we call intensive case management services. And so it's all about housing stability and helping folks to create individual goals. And so we will actually be meeting with each resident on our caseloads on an at least monthly basis. And in reality, what happens is that those case managers are meeting with residents on pretty much a weekly basis. And especially when they're first moving in, it's almost every day. And so the range of classes will really be based on the specific needs and goals identified by the individual resident. And so in our experience, what that has normally looked like is around one-on-one kinds of life skill coaching. And those are, so one-on-one life skill coaching, connections to employment services, whether that's soft skills, all the way to job training opportunities and employment placement, and linkages to different services like mental health. So as much as possible, we offer these services on the property, directly where the tenant is, so that they don't have to go anywhere to receive those services. And I think especially for transition age youth, that life skills component, and that includes budgeting, financial coaching, that becomes really important to do in their unit where they can practice those skills, right? And so our ICMS case managers, our intensive case management services, ICMS, those case managers actually come with a kind of checklist of the different skills you're going to need to live independently, if those are things that they haven't already learned. And so we will provide those services on site. There's also community space for residents that'll be on the site. And those are really great spaces for us to provide, on-site employment related classes, workshops. And it's all driven by the residents. What do they need? What are they saying they need? And let's provide those services on site as much as possible. So even if they need to meet with, even if they're, for example, in the earlier question around mental health services, their mental health service provider might not be based, sorry, let me flip that around. We do our best to create space for mental health service providers to also provide services to residents on site. As much as possible, we meet the residents where they're at and provide those services on site. And we try, if there are services that are off-site, we help the resident around transportation to make sure that they can get to those services as well. And so we, through different programs that we operate, we're able to provide that resource to residents. So it is our goal and our kind of ongoing approach that as much as possible, we meet residents where they're at and provide on-site housing-based support services.
There are two questions in the Q&A. One, are there going to be transit vouchers for residents?
Yes, as part of the Ahsc program, for the first, I think it's 2 or 3 years, they provide funding to provide up to 50% of a transit pass for the project, for residents. It's only for, I think it's 2 or 3 years, I forget the number of years that is included.
Okay, and who is going to be the service provider?
CRCD is the main service provider.
Okay, I think I have another question here. Going back to AHSC, she says, I mean specifically for AHSC.
Yeah, so I think I see the question now. He was asking about the transit vouchers from Ahsc. And then additional question about, since we have some unsecured financial sources, are we looking at accessing sources that would allow for lower rents? So the sources that are still outstanding, the funding that's for them, what's the way of putting this? So we've applied to TOD and MHP to cover the exact same units. So if we have one or other of those, the income mix, the unit mix that we're at, and the rents will be sufficient. And we're also applying for additional county funds in case neither of those two sources work, but we're not looking at applying for other sources to lower rents at this time. And we want to start construction next year, and with this unit mix and income mix, with funding between those three sources, plus the tax credits and bonds, we'll have all the financing that's necessary for the housing components.
Okay, another question. One more question. Since it seems like you have many unsecured financial sources, will you be looking into perhaps accessing some sources that would allow for lower rents?
And that's what I was saying, that no, we will not be looking to change the unit income mix at this time.
I think, is that it with the Q&A, Louis?
I'm finished, yes.
Okay. There's a new question in the chat box. When and how will you begin the process of selecting tenants, and what are the qualifications?
So we typically start the lease-up process about 6 months prior to certificates of occupancy. And as I mentioned, the permanent supportive housing units for the entire senior portion and 30 units on the family portion will become through a coordinated entry system. Angela can talk more about that. And then the other 86 units that will be left on the family portion will go through a whole process for how the application will be determined. It's something we'll have to work through with the county and the city. It's likely a lottery based on the people getting applications in by a certain time period, but we'll have workshops prior to the application being due to go through the process and how people would make sure they can qualify to move in. I don't know, Angela, if you want to add anything else to that.
Sure, happy to. So to build on what you're sharing, Alexis, for the permanent supportive housing side of the building, well, as you were saying, like generally lease up will start to happen about 6 months from the projected date of the certificate of occupancy. And so, earlier Alexis had shared that we're expecting that in or around August 2022. And so 6 months before that is generally when we would start doing the lease up.
It's 2023 though.
I'm sorry, 2023. My bad. 2023. And so 6 months before that is generally when we would start the lease up process. For the units set aside for individuals exiting homelessness, those units are going to be what we call matched through the countywide coordinated entry system. While this system, the coordinated entry system, is a countywide system, the way that individuals are matched to housing units, to housing resources as they become available is really based on the SPA, right? And so what will happen is that about 6 months before the certificate of occupancy is expected, the Department of Health Services, Department of Mental Health, CRCD, SSG HOPIX, like we all get together to start to look at who are the individuals, and in this case, seniors, families, and transition age youth who are experiencing homelessness within our region. So in South LA, in SPA 6, that's going to be kind of our first, the primary region that we're going to be looking at. So we're going to look at a community queue, and we have staff who this is their sole job for their position. They look at the community queue, they look at the service level need and the eligibility requirements, and then we actually contact each of those individuals, and we work with them through the lease up process to get their documents together. to go through the lease-up process. And we help them move in and everything like that. For the affordable units, it's, there isn't a system like that. And as Alexis was mentioning, what we would normally do and what we are planning to do also for this development is to host, a series of community workshops when we're getting around that same time. So around the same kind of lease up period, so about 6 months before certificate of occupancy, we will host community workshops to walk through the actual applications for those units. And that timeline will be, we're still so many years out, but that timeline will be shared. We'll be very transparent about, when those workshops are going to be. We'll offer them in multiple languages. We'll do everything that we can to get the word out so that once the date arrives for when applications can be received, folks in the community will already be ready to submit their applications. And then from that point, it's I believe it's going to be something like a lottery system, because we have to maintain a fairness. There has to be kind of fair access. But that's one of the ways. I think we heard this in the concern in previous workshops, that there's a concern that organizations might, they know how to get folks in. This is how you get folks in, is that we coordinate with the community to actually create those spaces to go through the application process and have, so that the community knows how to go through that, what to include in the application, what to prepare, and when to submit it. And then at that point, it'll likely be a lottery. I hope that's helpful. One of the things that we would like to know, from you all is, what else can we do? What are other ideas that the community, what other types of supports would the community like to see regarding that application process? So we want to hear that from you. Ideas that you have, you can drop them into the chat. You can raise your hand and we'll, unmute you. But we want to hear those ideas as well. I know we have other kinds of, there's a question here about, I think I covered the selection part, the qualifications part. This is going to be really based on so for the qualifications part for the permanent supportive housing units, it's really just the eligibility, that the individual, for the senior units, I think the minimum age is it 62, Alexis? The minimum age for the senior units?
Yeah, I think it's 62.
Thank you. And so for the qualifications, it'll depend on the unit. So if it's a senior specific unit, they have to be a senior, currently experiencing homelessness, and that's the eligibility criteria that we'll be able to sort through in the community queue. For the affordable units, I believe those are mainly income and family mix, like the number of people per unit that's available. And maybe Alexis, could you speak to the affordable unit qualifications?
So I think you're correct. I believe it's just the they tend to be about the income mix and the household size. And when we have further workshops, as we get closer to lease up, we'll be able to provide more information. We have a specific leasing group that knows more of those specific details, but we haven't quite figured everything out for this project specifically, because we are subject to working through requirements with the county and with the city of LA. We don't know all qualifications for those units at this time.
Okay. Before we go to I see some questions have popped up on the Q&A box. Before we go to those questions, I see a hand with, is it Lanella Enix? Lanella, I'm gonna unmute you. Can you hear us, or can we hear you?
I can.
Wonderful.
I had a question in terms of the senior citizens. Within a mile, or truthfully less of your project, there are 2 other senior citizen residential developments. And we have senior citizens in the community that already kind of are concerned about, they don't have anything to do. You know, there's a county park near, but there's nothing there specific for senior citizens. Um, are you, do you have a plan to help senior citizens stay occupied, to socialize, things of that nature? Or we have senior citizens now that just bring chairs and a table and stack them up on the sidewalk in front of a closed business, and they play cards and dominoes and things like that. And, you know, we kind of would like to make sure that you guys have a better plan for the ones that'll be living on Vermont and Manchester. So if you could speak to that.
Sure. So we will have, beyond like the case management and the events that we put together by them for events within the project, there's also a community room and a large plaza for the residents. So they'll be able to go in there and, you know, have their own card games. We usually put together lending libraries within projects, so seniors can you know, hang out at home and get to know their neighbors. The laundry rooms there's a laundry room on each floor that'll have, you know, seating for them as well. So while you're doing your laundry, you can talk to your neighbor. So yeah, there will be spaces available within our project.
And I would also add that there will be service coordinators for the project as well. And so the service coordinators, part of their job is working with property management to host like a resident advisory council as well. And so there's going to be other avenues to hear what kind of programming the seniors would like. As Alexis said, there's going to be space to do those kinds of programs, and depending on what they like to do. And there's also, you know, the plan, there'll also be great community, like outdoor community space in the plaza that we hope this will create opportunities for seniors to mix, mingle, play card games, you know, outside as well. I don't know, Leandro, if you want to speak to that's the space that's being envisioned for the plaza.
Sure. So as a part of the plaza design, what we're trying to do is create very comfortable amenities where people can actually feel comfortable to both hang out and lounge, but not in an environment that makes you feel like you're in a fortress or that you have to leave immediately. We do want this to feel like a community plaza. And so as a part of the design, we've actually created some landscaping berms where people can actually watch a poetry competition or do neighborhood council meetings or invite your local congressman to speak. And all of it is really centered around a primary focal point in the center where you will be having access to seating, benches, lots of landscaping. We also want to work with local community artists to create art within the plaza, both on the buildings as well as sculptures themselves. And with all of that said, I think we have a lot to learn and listen from the community on additional ideas that could be meaningful for seniors. I'm going to be frank with you. I've been, you know, working within this field for 28 years, but I can't say I've ever really thought about it until tonight in regards to, wow, what would a senior want to experience within a plaza that I haven't thought about? I think any ideas related to that kind of activation would be really, really welcome so we could incorporate that into the design.
Hello?
I think it seems like Lanella might have a follow-up question.
Yeah, can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, just as a suggestion, the county does have a senior center. If I remember correctly, it's somewhere off of Imperial or Rosecrans, and they offer a variety of opportunities for seniors to come together and socialize in an organized way or individually. Anything from dance classes to sewing classes to exercise to a large variety of classes that provides them an opportunity to get out of their unit and expend some energy so they can stay healthy and live longer. So I would suggest you guys, since, you know, this is basically a county project, use, you know, an example that's already available. Thank you.
Thank you, Anela. We will absolutely do that. That's great. Thank you for that recommendation. Okay. Louis?
Okay. Why will you not be asking for more? Can you send the award letters for the public funds that you were awarded?
So I think that's questions like why we're not asking for additional funding sources. We're not asking for additional funding sources and looking to lower the rent because the sources that we've had are enough for the project, and there's limited amounts of funding sources that are available. So with the Ahsc loan, the funding, like there's a specific number of like 30% AMI units, and you can't stack funding. So there, in order to provide additional like lower income units, you need other funding sources from other things, which would slow down the process. It would, if we tried lowering the rents or doing other things, it could take another year or two to get the project off the ground. And that doesn't work with the funding that we already have. It requires that we would start next year on the project. And then we aren't able to share the award letters for the funding sources, but that's the, I assume you took a screenshot of the other page, and those, it explains the funding sources that we have received to date on the project.
Next question. For example, what AHSC round the senior project was awarded in?
4. It was in 4.
Okay, that's it.
Great. Any other questions before we kind of go into a couple of questions that we would like to pose to you, to the community? Awesome. So we have 2 main questions.
Should I stop sharing my screen?
Oh yes, you're welcome to stop sharing your screen. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. So we have 2 main questions for the community this evening. And thank you again for all of the questions you've asked the team. I do want to just share, this is not your last opportunity to ask any questions. You're welcome to put more questions in the chat and email Louis if you have any follow-up questions that you think about later on, and we'll do our best to address those in the FAQ. All of these questions will be included in an FAQ and posted on the VMTPP website. So the first question that we have for the community is really around the, is specifically what supports would you like to see regarding the application process? And so this would, it seems like the most interest is around the affordable units. As mentioned previously, we will be coordinating community workshops to walk through the applications to make sure that folks know what is required to be included in the applications and the timeline for when things should be submitted. And as mentioned earlier, that would happen about 6 months prior to the projected certificate of occupancy date, which is around August 2023. So 6 months before that is the timing of that. So we would love to hear from you. What are some, in addition, or maybe how can we enhance, you know, those workshops? What are some of the things you think that are going to be really important to, you know, to include in the workshops, or maybe the format of the workshops? Any ideas at all? We want to hear from you. And so please put your ideas in the chat box. You're also welcome to raise your hand and we will unmute your line to share your ideas. Oh, cool. So Arnetta, thank you for that recommendation. That it would be great if future sessions could also be broadcast live on Facebook for a broader audience and to be continually viewed and shared. Thank you so much for that. We're actually also posting the recording of this workshop on the VMTPP website. and posting links on all of our social media to drive folks to that website to take a look at that recording. Thank you for that. Arnetta, do you have other recommendations? So maybe what we could do is post that like when we do the affordable the application workshop, we could maybe post that on Facebook Live if that's something that would make sense and that we could coordinate. Cool. Thank you for that recommendation. Any other ideas, recommendations? How can we make the application workshop as exciting as possible? Lanella, yes, you can take some time to consider to answer. And Lewis is actually our community engagement specialist. So you can email your ideas to Lewis. And Lewis, if you can drop your contact information in the chat box so folks also know how to contact you and share those ideas. Thank you, Lanella. Hopefully by then we'll be able to do some in-person workshops and not just virtual workshops. We have found that the in-person workshops have been very effective because we could actually like really, help each person and address any questions that they specifically have about the application. If we're able to do in-person workshops at that time, we'll provide food, some refreshments, and things like that. What we've done in the past too is had some information about services already available in case folks are looking for maybe employment services or anything like that. So we can continue that providing services on site or service information on site. Rather. Thanks, Lewis, for posting your information. So as folks kind of think of more ideas, please feel free to reach out, drop them in the chat box or reach out directly to Lewis. And so the second question that we have for folks this evening is just about the services. And so we've talked about what services we traditionally have provided, both for the formerly homeless residents as well as just for the whole community. And so we want to hear from you if you have any specific recommendations and ideas for the types of services you believe would be helpful to residents living in this development. And thanks again to Lanella for the wonderful recommendation around connecting with the County Senior Center. And we'll be sure to do that because I fully agree, that any services that can help seniors to socialize, exercise, get out of their unit and connect, I think is a good thing. And has been helpful, for seniors in the past. Some other programs that we've had in the past when it has come to seniors has been kind of intergenerational programming. So since we will have different generations and different age groups at the site, that's also something that we've heard seniors want is ways to connect and maybe even mentor other residents and sometimes the younger residents. So those are
Did we lose Angela?
I think we may have.
Okay. Well, please, nobody make fun of her picture
No.
and how it froze. Lewis, could we ask you to take us to the next part of the agenda?
Okay, the next part of the agenda is announcements and next steps. And sign up on the website, the vmtpp.com website, which was posted earlier. I'll post it again. And the remaining workshops, Wednesday, November 18th, from 6 to 8 p.m., we're having retail and commercial space workshop. And that's it. Any questions?
I don't think so. The recording and the FAQs, once the FAQs are together and we have answers to everyone's questions, we'll make sure it's posted on the vmtpp.com website. They are posted on the CRCD Facebook page. The past 2 recordings are already posted. The FAQs are in the comments under the post. So if you'd like to go there to view the last 2 work groups that we've had, you're welcome to do so. This one will be posted as soon as we have all of our answers together for you.
And
Okay, so Angela's saying her internet kicked her completely off. So I think she's going to try to reconnect on her phone if we want to wait. But Leandro, go ahead.
I was simply going to state that all of the development teams working on this project are open to take questions, comments, or phone calls or meeting requests at any time. It doesn't have to be on these Zoom calls that we do. So as other questions arise, or if there's additional conversations that we want to have and get more in depth, we're certainly open to that and really welcome the dialogue with the community.
And I just wanted to mention that the vmtpp.com website is also now available in Spanish. So as of right now, there's a button all the way at the bottom where you can switch over to the Spanish version. We're looking into relocating that to the top of the page, but we want it to be, more inclusive of the diversity in the community. So it's available in Spanish now.
Gracias.
Question in the chat box. Last question. What tax credit round are you applying to, and when is the deadline?
First round 2021, and the deadline has not been set yet. Tax credits they're updating the regulations, so we don't know.
Okay. That's it.
It's the 4% plus state tax credit, so not 4%, not 9% first round. So it's the first round they have the state tax credits. We'll apply as soon as it's available. They put out draft guidelines a week or 2 ago, I believe. At this point, we don't think they're going to have an application before February or March of next year.
Thank you, Alexis. I see this question in the chat, but I think that's what you just answered with the tax credit round. Yeah. Okay. All right. So Angela contacted me and let me know she's not going to be able to log back in. So I don't know, Leandro or Alexis, if you have any parting words, any last statements, and then we'll wrap up.
I was going to say thank you for the opportunity to talk about the affordable housing. Yes, Andrew said, please reach out to us if you have additional questions. And I will echo what he said at the beginning of the meeting and to remind you all to vote, because your vote does matter. And yes, if you try reaching me in the next couple of days, I will actually be out because I will be working on a campaign to see things hopefully change in the coming years. So
good for you.
That's how I will leave it at that.
Good for you.
So November 4th, I'll be very happy or very sad. So there's only 2 options at this point.
Well, I'll just say thank you all for joining us. We appreciate you all taking interest in the community and what we're doing, and we appreciate your support. And as everyone else has said, go vote, be safe, take care of yourselves, and we will hopefully see you again on November 18th. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful evening. Thanks. Bye.
Good night.
Bye.